Hey guys, so this is the 13th update on my 2/5 scale Sherman M4A3E8. So I got the hydrostatic drives mounted in and the motor mounted, and I got it driving. So with the motor, it was originally a vertical shaft and I had to rotate it 90 degrees. So now it's a horizontal shaft. That way those pulleys are in line, because I didn't want to have to twist the belt and then have the belt fall off. And I had to tilt the motor forwards so I had enough clearance for the top of the tank. And then for the carburetor, I had to build an intake manifold so the carburetor sits level. And I had to build a governor linkage that goes from the carburetor down to the governor underneath the motor there. That way when you put load on the motor, it revs up, and then when there's no load, it'll idle down a bit, because I didn't want to have a gas pedal. And for the belt here, I've got those pulley here for the right drive, pulley there for the left drive. And then the belt, I had to run it down around an idler, up, and then that idler's there, so the belt wraps around these pulleys as much as it can so the belt doesn't slip. And then for the drives, I had to mount this one on an angle, otherwise it would have, if I had those drives sitting level, it would have been 4 inches ahead, and then I would have lost 4 inches of leg room, and I need that. I had to build these adapter plates here. It's a 4 inch by 4 inch by 1/4 inch piece of plate. Then I drill 5 holes in it. The center one's a locating hole, and then there's 4 bolt holes around the outside. And a weld 17-2 sprocket and hub on the end of it. And did the same with this drive here, so I can attach the chain to that. And then so those pulleys are in line, I had to run a jack shaft from this side across to the other side. And there's a short chain here. And then there's a 17-2 sprocket at the end of that jack shaft, which runs this chain over to an idler, or sorry, a jack shaft, and then to an output shaft. And for the left side of the tank, it's a little simpler. There's a sprocket there, 17-2 sprocket, that runs the chain up to a jack shaft here, and then to the output shaft. And for the brakes, I had to remount them, because they're originally mounted here over to a bell crank and then to the linkages. Same on the other side, because I had brake steering before. So I had to mount master cylinders in here and lengthen the rod a little bit, so I've got pedal brakes in case I need them. And the track, I took 1 link out of each track, so that way these air cylinders in here will extend enough, because they were bottoming out before and the track was coming loose. To take those links out, I had to unbolt 2 blocks, move this 1 block back, bolt that connection, the connector block in here, bolt that in, and then cut the rubber back. It wasn't too big of a job. And I kept breaking chains. This chain here, I broke it twice. So this is what happened the second time. I guess this pin snapped, and then they pried apart, the bearing fell out, and then the end of the chains disconnected. The first time, the reason it broke was because this sprocket, I guess, slid sideways because I forgot to tighten it. And then the 1 pin fell out, and then the other pin sheared off, chain broke. I think the reason it broke this time was because this chain gets too loose, and then the chain jumps, and I guess what happened was it missed every tooth, or it was on top of every tooth except for 1, and then probably pulled on 1 tooth and then broke it, because it's supposed to pull on a bunch of teeth, and the chain wasn't strong enough. And I had to redo this mount here for the bearing mount. I originally had a piece of 1-inch tubing, but it was thinner wall because I didn't have any thick stuff. That was all I had laying around. I used the thin stuff and then it bent it. I'll grab the piece over here. So this is the old bearing mount here. That's supposed to be straight. So my grandpa had some thicker stuff I ended up using. Used some remade a mount out of thicker tubing. And then to try and stop this chain from jumping, I think I'm going to use a U-bolt here. Put a U-bolt around this drive here, and then I'll run a piece of 1-inch tubing up here and weld that to the bearing mount, so that way it tries to take some of the flex out of it. I also had to mount this plate in here, so it took some more flex out of the drive, because I guess there's a lot of load on those chains trying to flex the thing. And I had to build a mount here to stop this. I got a piece of flat bar in here to stop that drive from flexing as much. And then I got this tank here. This is the reservoir for the oil tank. So there's a return line that goes to the motor here, and then a return line on the other side that goes to the motor, or from the motors to the tank. And then there's the inlet line, which is from the bottom of the tank to that filter, and then to these pumps. And for the linkages, I got one linkage that goes from that arm over to a belt crank here, which takes the motion and turns it to 90 degrees. That goes over to this valve here to adjust forwards and reverse. And the other side's got a linkage that goes to a belt crank and over to that linkage on the pump for that drive there. So I'm gonna post a test drive video soon after I get the thing to stop, after I get the chain to stop jumping as much, because I don't want to strip the sprockets anymore. They're already getting worn down because it keeps jumping. So that test drive video will be coming soon, probably in a couple days. And then later I'm going to mount this AC compressor because I had to take it off. And I'm either going to have to mount it back here, or I'm going to mount it up front and move that exhaust. I'll probably have to mount it up front because I need enough height. I don't want to cut out this mount to remount the AC compressor. But that'll be later. And yeah, so stay tuned for that test drive video, and see you later.